The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, Symbolic Celebration Ceremonies, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes celebrate 6 years of the podcast with a look at their top 6 gaming experiences. Then the Dukes will give you their annual State of the Duchy. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex, and I think I realized it at the same time you did.
Yep, you sure did. But you know what, Alex? Why not? Let's press ahead. This is episode 231, which we have yet to title because we forgot to have our pre-show conversation about which of the episode title suggestions from our Board Game Geek Guild we should use. Oh boy. You know, I was like, oh, I should stop this. Let's just go back. But you know what, Alex?
Nope. It's a thing now. We're going forward.
We're going forward. So first, let me just say, Alex, happy 6-year anniversary.
Happy 6 year. What'd you get me?
I got you. I've got an outfit for me to wear later. You'll see. It's a gaming outfit, Alex. A gaming outfit.
Oh, okay.
No, not really.
Is it like a meeple, a meeple outfit for me to get all suited up in?
Yeah, something like that. No,
Oh,
I didn't
boy.
get you anything. If you were here, maybe I would have gotten you something, but I got you nothing. You get nothing.
Well, I didn't get you anything either.
Well, perfect.
So,
We're meant for each other.
So we're perfect for each other.
So yeah, this is our 6-year anniversary episode. It's weird that it's episode 231 because that numbers doesn't fit anywhere. If you remember, it was episode 52 was our 1-year anniversary because we used to do it weekly. But then over the years, we probably missed 4 episodes through some sort of delay. I'd say 4 or 5 maybe.
It might be more than that, but somewhere in that ball. It's not a ton.
Yeah. I think we're just gonna kind of go with the name Father, right? For naming the episode.
Oh, are we just doing that?
I think so.
Let me look at that name again.
It's number 1 on the list.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah.
And it's fitting. It's fitting, right?
Yeah,
Ooh.
I like the name.
So let's give that. So everybody, welcome episode 231, Boxcars, courtesy of Steve O'Rourke, the Name Father. Boxcars is what we call our the games that get 6s, our Boxcars award winners, because of course Boxcars is 2 6s, and this is half of a Boxcars anniversary.
So should it be half of a Boxcars?
Maybe it should. Oh. Maybe we need to pick a different name.
Maybe we need to disqualify this name and pick a different one.
No, I think we're committed now. It's Boxcars. It's Boxcars.
Okay. All right.
So, and I think it's fit, like you said, it's fitting that the Name Father, who is the leader in naming Dukes of Dice episodes, is naming our 6-year anniversary episode. Do we need a name board or a name leaderboard for naming anniversary episodes? I wonder if is it possible this is his 2nd or 3rd anniversary episode naming?
It's not something I track. I will say the naming leaderboard itself is woefully out of date, and it's on my to-do list to get it not that way. But no, tracking which episodes, like who named the most episodes with a 0, who like 50, 40, 100.
Yeah, but those aren't.
I don't know. It's as good of a thing to track as the thing you.
All right. No, it's not our anniversary episodes.
There's only 6 of them.
You're okay. Well, still, so far. Okay. Anyway,
I have no idea.
Anyway, as I was alluding to before, we get help naming our episodes from our amazing Board Game Geek Guild. We're guild number 2008. You should go check it out because we've got discussions about what's coming up on the forthcoming podcast and some other stuff going on over there. And then we'll give you the runners up for naming the episode at the end of the episode. So, Alex, how you doing, buddy?
I'm getting married in a little more than 3 weeks from the time we're recording this.
Oh, yeah. I totally didn't think about that. So and you've talked about this on the show, we just got your, hey, we're still getting married, you're not invited card from you and Abby.
Wait. It was a little nicer than that. But yeah, there isn't a category on a lot of these sites for change the date or move the date up or turn the date into something completely different. So we figured it out. It's fine. We're working with it.
But when I got it just like a week ago or so, I'm like, oh yeah, they're still doing it in September, and I didn't even think like, oh, that's like a couple weeks away.
Yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today.
Wild.
My parents will be driving in. They're making a quick stop in Oklahoma, and then they're driving the rest of the way on Thursday.
Okay.
So they will be arriving at the Gamers Ranch in beautiful Osage County, Missouri. 160 acres of fun, and hopefully nobody gets sick in the lead up. Otherwise, it might all get canceled at the last second.
Yeesh.
So yep. But no, cake's ready. I have my suit. Abby has her dress. Everything is so far going according to plan, which is not a term I would use for anything. Anything in this planning process this year.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yeah, that's wedding. That's me. What about you?
Well, I've got some great Dukes of Diet news to report.
Let's hear it.
So my weigh-in today, I am now officially south of 250 for the first time since before Chewy was born. 249.5, which brings me to a grand total of 65.5 pounds lost in the last 13, 14 months. So that was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting to see. I think it's great right now that I don't really have to be in court because I'm in between suit sizes. And if I had to be in court, I would have to go buy a new suit or two just for another couple months. But I've got a way to go, but it's very, very exciting. Did I mention last time, had Mariah joined me on doing keto?
She was starting to, and then she had cheated, and then she was back on it.
So yeah, she's doing great on it now. We found some keto tortillas online, and they're not great, but gotta have tortillas. Just gotta. I make tacos all the time, so I've been making tacos out of them. We made some enchiladas the other night. It was good, very good. So yeah, great Dukes of Diet update. Work is still crazy. Some really crazy stuff that talked about with you off air, but it's good.
Yep.
Things are going good, Alex. All things considered.
Sean, it's a weird, much like anything with COVID, it's a weird anniversary. It's a weird one.
It is weird.
6 is such a significant number for the show, right? We have the top 6. We have the 6-point rating scale. There's any number of reasons 6 has become a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, much like the most recent anniversary, the 5th one, and even the 4th one, I think. Not a ton of fanfare. We're just kind of cruising along here, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think it feels like more of an achievement to last a year or two than it does to last longer than that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if that's, but no, I think part of it, well, I don't want to get into too much of it. I guess we could say that for the State of the Duchy.
State of the Duchy.
But I will say that, we are breaking with tradition. And if there's any year to break with tradition, it's 2020. Normally we update our top 10 list of all time. You would kind of want to move away from that. And I thought this year that made perfect sense because, there probably would have been some movement, but it's just been a weird year. So.
Undeniably a weird year. And I think last year I was looking to move away from it. I'm happy to have moved away from it now. If for a bit, I think if we revisit it next year, there might be enough change, possibly.
Yeah. Well, it depends what gaming looks like.
Yeah.
Over the next couple months. So.
All right. Well, let's dig into games. Sean, have you been playing anything new of late?
I have. Let's see. I picked up a game supporting Empire Board Game Library. Picked up a new kids game. Is it new? I don't know if it's new. It's new to me, Alex, and really that's all that matters. It's from Cosmos, and it's called Lagoonies. Oh, that's funny. That's why I was singing that song before we started recording. I
thought that's what you were referencing. I thought the Lagoonies was some sort of a YouTube IP that that Chewie was watching. I didn't think you were.
No.
Yeah, anyway.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was singing the Cyndi Lauper song from Goonies, and you didn't recognize it or know what I was talking about. And I didn't know where it came from, but it's because I just typed in Lagoonies, which is this board game. So it's published by Cosmos, and I think it is a new release or a newer release. It's called Lagoonies, like a lagoon and then Lagoonies, and it's the undersea search game, and basically it's for 5 and up. I've played it 3 times now, just with me and Chewie. It plays up to 4, and what you're trying to do is collect certain of these sea sprites. They're ghosts, which is weird. They're sea ghosts. They're aquatic sea ghosts, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And you're trying to collect 9 if you're playing with 3 or more players, or 18 if you're playing with just 2 players. And it's what I like about a lot of these kids games is they use the box as a component of the game, right? Think of what was that one, Spinderella, that won the Kinderspiel years back?
Oh, sure.
And
Spinderella, Ice Cool does that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool. And this does it. Oh wow, no, this is a 2016 game. Okay, it's 2016. Yeah. But anyway, the box has this inset where you can keep all of the pieces for storage, but then you place this kind of lazy Susan on top of it that will spin or click 1/6 of a turn, I think. And on this little turntable that you've created, you're going to place all of the little sea sprite chips. And so you keep them nice and flat, because then you're going to put another layer on top of that, which are basically holes in the lagoon where you can see some of them underneath. Now, the holes are going to get filled by these concave blue plastic pieces that are see-through, but they distort what's underneath. So you can't quite see the exact pieces that are underneath. You have to kind of look around from different angles to get an idea of what's under there. And on your turn, you're going to roll a die. It's a 6-sided die, but it's just 1s, 2s, and 3s. And you're going to spin or rotate the wheel that many times, and it's going to show you which type of sea sprite. There are, I think, 5 different sea sprites or 6 different sea sprites. And you have to identify where you think some of those are located, that particular sea sprite. And you're going to place a little marker of yours on one of the little bubbles. And it's all real time. So you're racing to do this. And then once everyone's done that, you pull off the bubble and you have to kind of fish around, think kind of Operation style. There's no buzzer, but you have to fish around with your fingers. And the problem is it's so thin between this top covering layer and the layer that the sprites are actually on, that if you bump something and it'll move underneath the barrier, and now you can no longer get at it. So you got to be really careful. That's part of the game, right? So I may open one and I may see 2 of the sprites I'm looking for. And as I go to pick up one, I accidentally knock the other one underneath the rest of the barrier. And now I thought I was going to get 2 points. Now I'm going to get 1 point. So very simple, very light. Chewie, she's 6. She picked it up. She really enjoys it. There's not a lot going on here. She's struggled with just trying to play my turns for me. And I said, you know who else does that? Alsec, because that's what she calls you, Alsec. Or she used to call you that.
Does she still call me that? Does she
still
know me by that name?
No, she calls you Alex now. So,
okay, that's good.
In fact, she was quite disappointed that we had to record. She actually wanted to play Super Rhino Hero when I got home tonight. And she's like, oh, you're recording? Why did you ever come up with the podcast in the first place? I'm like, well, thanks. Jeez.
I'm looking forward to the day, because when is the last time Chewie made an intentional on-air appearance on the Dukes of Dice?
It's been a while. I think the last time was probably, maybe her that was on YouTube. I'm not sure. It's been a while.
I'd be curious to have Chewie on an episode.
Yeah,
a Sean and Chewie review of a game, I think, would be adorable.
Ooh, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Huh. Yeah, we could do that.
All right.
I'll teach her Imperial Struggle and I'll see what she thinks.
See if she's a Feldhead. Get her into Castles of Burgundy. Give that a try.
I feel like she's going to be more Uwe.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that one's easy. You have Patchwork right there. I think Patchwork could work.
Yeah.
Or as I say, Nova Luna is Patchwork for babies. So just Nova Luna. Nova
There you
Luna
go.
it up. Anyway.
All right. Well, that does it for that quick look at Lagoonies from Cosmos.
Okay. I thought you were wrapping up the whole segment just then.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our recent plays.
I was going to say, I've got a lot of stuff to talk about.
A lot
You're
of stuff.
Being very rude. Oh, yeah, and even more that I didn't include that I'm holding back. So
Anyway, Lagoonies.
Gen Con.
It's called Lagoonies.
Gen Con
Carry on.
happened. Online, of course. Oh my goodness. Sean Ramirez. All right. He's drinking a cola. I think I'm safe now.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Gen Con has come and gone. It was happening as the episode was in between when we recorded it and when it was released. I didn't do a ton at Gen Con. I did have a few experiences, and I will actually switch out one of these as I'm thinking about it. One of them was playing the Rival Networks with BJ from Board Game Gumbo. This is from Formal Ferret Games. It's a Gilhova game. It's a 2-player version of the Networks, which if longtime Dukes listeners will recall, the Networks was one that I was unbelievably excited about. Loved the theme, thought it was going to be great, and the gameplay itself just kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
And as funny as the jokes were one time through, not so good. The Rival Networks, the 2-player version of this, is good. Is really good. Equally thematic. Has a lot of the funny in-jokes on cards, but has this nice tug of war. Condenses the experience to maybe 30 to 45 minutes. And works. It just works as a 2-player game. We had a great time trying it out on Tabletopia. Gil himself was there to do demo it for us at the virtual Formal Ferret booth. So that was fun. Strong recommendation for Rival Networks. Might be a future review, maybe not. But we move on to the next one, Gudetama. This is a game from Renegade Games. It's a trick-taking game, and it's based off of a YouTube video series about a very lazy egg.
How do you spell that?
Gudetama.
Okay.
Gudetama. This is a game where you are, it's a trick-taking game, and it is a very simple trick-taking game. You have cards ranging in value from, don't quote me on this, Sean, but I think 1 to 15. Something along those lines. And someone is going to lead a trick, and then you must play higher than that, as high or higher, or you are forced to play the lowest card in your hand. Any of the points accrued during the round don't count. None of the tricks during the course of the round count. The only trick that actually technically matters is the last trick. Whoever wins that last trick will get a certain amount of negative points based on the amount of cards they took in that last trick. Not the amount of cards, I should say. The card that you played, in front of you. If you win the trick with that card, congrats, those are negative points for you. In my demo of this, Sean, I somehow got triggered endgame in 2 rounds, which is nearly impossible. You have to get, I think, 25 negative points in order to trigger endgame or something along those lines, and I got a 13 and a 12 right off the bat in the first 2 rounds. Almost unheard of. Played very badly. Did a bad job. Gudetama. I don't know if I'd recommend it. It's a very simple trick-taking game. I would say perhaps too simple. It doesn't have kind of an appealing elegance to it. There's a ton of better trick takers out there. I get what it's trying to do. It's just way too simple for me. Not a fan of it. Really cute art. Really cute art. The YouTube videos are bizarre and funny. The game itself, downright lousy in my book. Anyway, that's Gudetama, the tricky egg game. The last thing I wanted to talk about, though, was True Dungeon. And I'm going to do a little spoiler for the top 6. True Dungeon itself is not in my top 6 gaming experiences of all time, although it very well could have been. True Dungeon, for folks who don't know, is something that they tended to run at larger conventions. I'm just speaking about this in the past tense. It's still very much a thing. At Gen Con, at Origins, where you are basically doing a live-action D&D type experience. You have different character classes. You have these chips that you get, these poker chips that represent different weapons and potions and armor, and you equip your characters, and you go in, and the rooms are alternating or a mix between puzzle rooms and dungeon fight rooms. The dungeon fights tend to be sliding those pucks, trying to basically they'll have monsters mapped out, and so the critical spot, like the heart, might have a 20 on it, whereas the space underneath its arm to the left might have a 1 on it, a critical failure, as an example. So that's sort of a way of mimicking the D&D experience. It's in person. You have actors in costume. You have live special effects. You have really nicely done intricate puzzles. It's an experience. It's an escape room meets D&D meets shuffleboard. They tried, as part of Gen Con, because this is a big Gen Con event, to do a virtual True Dungeon experience. And by tried, I mean pulled it off really successfully. How they did this, Sean, was you basically still paired up. They ran it through a Zoom call, but with a lot of bells and whistles added in. The dungeon itself was set up at their warehouse, and there was a golem who would kind of act on behalf of the players. So it was someone with like a camera mounted to their chest, or just a camera. I don't know if it was where it was mounted or anything. But basically, you would kind of command and control them. They could hear all the discussions between players. You could kind of lend discussions. And so the golem would manipulate things. You say, all right, golem, look in this thing and tell us, see what we see. Okay, golem, move this thing to that thing. So it was sort of someone who was your agent acting within the space, having interactions with the various characters. I won't spoil anything of the run because there's another set of this same run coming in September, I believe. It was so popular that they've added two different types of runs, one of which is a repeat of this most recent one of which is kind of a prelude to the second one that they're doing in November. Needless to say, it was a really surprisingly engaging experience. It felt immersive. It was tied to story. They used the mixtures of video cut-ins. The video experience was seamless. There was a DM on with us to manage everything. I didn't know what expectations I had going in. They were absolutely exceeded. So if what I've described in terms of D&D meets shuffleboard, and you haven't been able to get out to Gen Con or Origins or try True Dungeon, or you've tried True Dungeon, liked it, but aren't sure how a virtual one's going to work, I would give this one 2 thumbs up. It was a ton of fun. They ship your treasure afterwards. You get kind of these treasure chips that arrived in a little box. I don't know. I can't praise it enough. It really worked well. I was genuinely surprised, but that was the experience of my Gen Con Online for sure. So that's Rival Networks, Gudetama, True Dungeon Online. Sean, would you look at doing a run on something like that?
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty sweet. I'd definitely be interested in that.
I think you would really like it.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Cool. So that's my Gen Con experience. Sean, what else have you been playing?
So, it's interesting. Raquel and I had been making an effort to bring out some old favorites. And we've been doing a lot of that. We'd played Fields of Arla. We had played or Labora, both Uwe games. But I'd also picked up Marco Polo 2 in the service of the con. I say that it's not an old game, it's a newer game, but we were talking about playing Marco Polo, and then sure enough, we were able to pick this up at Empire and brought it home, punched it out, and we played it, and we enjoyed it quite a bit. So we reviewed Marco Polo years ago, year 1, maybe year 2. Alex, you hated it. I remember playing upstairs in the game room of the Duchy, and you were just miserable. You hated this game. It's too long for you. It was, yeah. Raquel and I loved it, the original game. This is not very different. It's pretty similar. I get why they called it 2, because it's not some sort of spiritual successor. It's a very similar game, but with an added mechanic or 2, added resource. There's a jade resource, which is kind of a wild, but not quite. There's also these guilds that you need to acquire at certain points to allow travel around the map. But let me take a step back real quick. So in the first voyages of Marco Polo, you are Marco Polo and some other European adventurers playing this Euro game, basically traveling from west to east, following the path that Marco Polo took, or different paths you could potentially go. Here, you're now in the east, starting the game in the east, and you're in the service of the con, returning to the west. And so the main mechanic here is basically dice placement. You have 5 dice on your turn. You're going to roll them, and then you're going to place them on different spots on the board. Some require 1 die, some require 2 die. Of course, the values matter. There's some options to place dice in spots that are already occupied. It might cost you some money. There is additional dice that you can acquire temporarily if you pay one of the resources camels. But basically, it's a resource management Euro game. But the big thing is you're trying to move your explorer on the board by taking this movement action that costs money to get from one point to another, but then it might also cost other resources based on the intervening costs from one point to another. Every time you go to a city, you're going to place a trade post out, which is going to give you possibly some ability in that particular city. It might give you some income every single round. It might give you access to special action spaces. Really great game. I don't need to own both, and they're just not different enough. Like, it's really kind of annoying. There are a lot of Feld games that are kind of samey, but there's still different enough, right? I didn't get this. I don't get why. Could this have been an expansion? And I'm thinking, like, here's a different board, like Terraforming Mars, the Hellas and Elysian expansion. Here's a different board. Here's some different explorer asymmetric abilities. It just seems weird that it's a standalone game when it's really similar, except for a couple tweaks. I don't know. I just don't see the need to own both. I don't know which one I would rather have. I'm going to get rid of one, is what I'm saying, and I don't know which one. I'll probably have to figure that out. Probably at least get a couple more plays of this one. But yeah, it's certainly weird. It's certainly weird.
Is it odd having Marco Polo 2 and not Marco Polo 1? Well, hang on. I'll take a step back because if I had Glenmore 2, if I owned that, I wouldn't care whether I owned Glenmore 1 or not. So, yeah, maybe not.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird, and it's kind of upsetting because it's a really good game. They're both really good games. They're both very high fives, and it just seems frustrating to get rid of a high five. Like, I'm at a point where I've gotten rid of some low fives.
Wow.
But to get rid of a high five, I don't know. It's definitely worth trying. I can't even tell you which one you should search out. Like, I don't know about the availability of the first Marco Polo right now. But if they're both readily available, I don't know. I couldn't recommend one over the other, which is
Gotcha.
Which is weird.
Okay.
And frustrating. I feel frustrated, Alex. I'm frustrated.
I'm sorry.
But anyway, yeah, that's Marco Polo 2 in the service of the con.
Awesome. Last one I'll talk about is one that has released, and I haven't seen any reviews on this, Sean. I'm sure there are a ton of reviews, so I don't know whether I'm in the minority or majority of this. I played Marvel Villainous, and this is the take on Disney Villainous. This is a game that originally focused on Disney villains. You're playing as them, kind of trying to fulfill their schemes, so you might play as Jafar or Ursula and do various things to try and accomplish your goals and defeat the various heroes trying to get in your way. It's a game that uses negative timing. Basically, the game will play until one person has met their victory condition. Everyone else will try and kind of beat that person down until the next person's close to getting their victory condition, and then they'll beat them down, and then eventually someone will win. I like Disney Villainous for its theme. Marvel Villainous, I don't care as much about Marvel as a theme. So you have, and I had to look this up. You have five heroes. One of them that was playing is Hela from Thor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hela.
You have Hela.
Yeah. Kate Blanchett from Thor 3 Ragnarok.
I'm sure she does a great job in the movie. I've not seen any of the Thor movies.
You haven't seen Thor Ragnarok? Oh my God.
No.
Oh
I hear
my
that
God.
one's great.
Oh my
I hear
God.
that one's a lot of fun.
It's the best Thor. Wow. Okay.
Well, I haven't seen any of the Thors, so I can't speak to which one's the best.
You could skip 1 and 2.
Okay. Killmonger was another character in this one. Ultron, Taskmaster, and there's someone who's a fifth one. Game I played, I was Killmonger up against Ultron and Hela. And yeah, I mean, it plays in a similar fashion. It's an action selection game. You have 4 different actions you have. You'll place your marker on one of them for your first action, and then from then on, you have to move to the next space. Those actions give you various things, including getting energy, allowing you to spend energy for cards, allowing you to activate different effects, allowing you to fate another player. What's different between Disney Villainous and Marvel Villainous is in Disney Villainous, every player has their own thematic fate deck. So, Sean, I might say that you're getting really close to accomplishing your goal, so I'm going to try and fate you and block you. And if you're playing as Jafar, well, that pesky Aladdin might come out of the deck. Or something that's going to get in my way, or the genie. Any number of these kinds of things can come about. But they're thematic to your character. It's my choice who to target, but whatever happens to you. In this, they take all of those fate decks and shuffle them together into one giant fate deck. So whenever I fate, I draw from the fate deck, and then I decide I can use something that would normally hurt you the worst on someone else. I don't have to target you if, again, to use an example, I don't know enough Marvel things to make a good example of this, but basically, it's like as if I drew Aladdin out of the deck and decided, Jafar is doing okay, but Ursula's really close to winning, so I'm going to send Aladdin after Ursula, which I guess is kind of fun thematically, but it doesn't have the feeling of being able to target someone with something that you know is going to hurt their game. So there's less control over things compared to, say, Disney Villainous. I didn't get engaged with the theme as well. The whole thing was just kind of eh. I won, and I still didn't end up caring all that much. So I wouldn't recommend it personally unless you're super into Marvel. And I guess if you like Disney Villainous and you're super into Marvel, this will probably be fine. I don't know if I like the decision that they had on the Fate decks. It was okay.
Unless you're talking about like Descendants, in Disney movies, there's no crossover of characters, right? Whereas in Marvel and comics, I mean, yeah, you may be primarily a Spider-Man villain, but you're still going to wind up in an Iron Man comic book or Captain America comic book, or so. Like to me, that kind of makes sense.
So it's not a thematic issue I have with it. I agree with you. There's enough crossover in Marvel that tying these characters together makes some amount of thematic sense, whereas the Disney universes tend to be fairly separated out. The issue I have with it is more of a gameplay issue that, let's say, in my case, for instance, I was moving and grooving. I was getting a lot of points, and people would try and fate me, but you draw a top card of the fate deck, and it may be something that's really bad for, say, Hela, but is only a minor inconvenience for me. Because of the way my deck is geared and my victory condition, it doesn't interact with me in a way that is that big of a deal.
Okay,
so
I gotcha.
So you don't have as much control over knocking other players down, and that may be a favorite or less favorite thing for folks, but it felt like the game became kind of a runaway leader type thing, and I don't know. It may have been done to solve an issue that can come up in Disney Villainous, where that game can go on forever, right? If people keep getting close and then getting bumped down. I don't know. I didn't like it in this game. I get the thematic connection. I don't care as much about Marvel. Villainous I like as a system thematically, but if you don't have the theme that's engaging, it's not something that I'm going to actively go out and get just as a plain vanilla system.
Okay.
So, yeah, Marvel Villainous, really well produced. Not one I had fun with. So, there you go. That is Marvel Villainous, and that is a look at what we played. We're skipping news because we feel like it. It's our birthday, Sean. We can do what we want to. We'll see you back for our top 6 gaming experiences of all time after a word from our sponsors. Well, Sean, in these tricky times, our friends at Game Toppers want to let folks know that they're still open for business. They're still doing what they can to provide some at-home gaming goodness to help people upgrade their gaming experience while they're trapped at home. So Late Pledge Manager is open on Game Toppers. They have a lot of great bundles on their website, some of which might sell out, so check it out before it gets too late. Also, mats are going to be able to be shipped out relatively soon, so if that's something you've been looking for, hey, great. Thanks to Game Toppers for supporting the podcast and for supporting gamers looking to upgrade their gaming experience.
So go visit them at GameToppersLLC.com.
Sean, we have to come up with some sort of way to open up this ad for Aquatica coming soon from Arcane Wonders in October. I'm trying to think of a good way to do it. So here's my suggestion, Sean. So you let me know. I'll give one, you'll give one, and we'll go with a better one. So mine would just be going, under the sea, and then just get into it from there. What do you think?
Oh, no. Here's what I would do. I would do kind of the like, we're having a natural conversation and we just happen to be talking about our sponsor and one of their games.
Oh.
We'll go like this.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, Sean. How are you today?
Oh, I'm pretty well. No, stop. Okay. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Sean.
Do you ever feel?
Am I supposed to not interrupt you? Sorry.
Do you ever feel, as an American citizen, that we don't get all of the good games over here? Like we're just nothing gets released over here, Alex. It is unfair.
The shelves are so empty all the time.
It is unfair. It is unpatriotic. And
Jeez.
frankly, I'm just in shock that quality games aren't available here in the US, Alex. But thankfully, Arcane Wonders is bringing over a fantastic game like Aquatica, which, Alex, you've played.
I have played it.
But hasn't been available for American distribution as part of some KGB plot to keep gamers. Oh, right, they're the GRU now, right? They're technically the GRU.
Oh.
So anyway, that would be my pitch to start it off, Alex.
I think that's fine. So, or we could just tell the great people about Aquatica, a hand management, engine building, card drafting game set under the sea with fantastic monsters and brave heroes as you battle with other players to conquer the sea. I have played this. I have enjoyed this, honestly. This is a game that has gotten the Dice Tower Seal of Excellence. This will be published under the Dice Tower Essentials line, and it's set to be available in the U.S. in October. And Sean, I think you'll actually like this one a lot. Yeah, no, I'm looking at it now, and the art looks fantastic. I love my card games, so I'm definitely excited for this to finally come over to the U.S. Yeah, finally. Ugh.
Bunch of anti-American whatevers.
Oh boy. This is the most controversial ad.
But anyway, if you want to find out more about Aquatica and all of the other amazing board games that Arcane Wonders has to offer, head on over to their website at arcanewonders.com.
And remember, it's never a blunder when you go with Arcane Wonders. It's been a crazy 6 years. From a move to Sean owning his own law firm, to convention trips and celebrity meetings and tons of games and the people who play them. I joined a publisher. I left a publisher. It's been madness. So how do you boil that down to the top 6 gaming experiences? How do you take all of that time with this hobby that we love and boil it down? Well, Sean and I are going to attempt to do that. It's our top 6 gaming experiences of all time.
All right, Alex. So like I said, we're abandoning tradition. No updated top 10. But like you just said, we're going to talk about some other tops, 4 less tops, specifically gaming experiences. So let me ask, did you limit yours to since the time on the podcast, or did it go beyond that? I know you were less extensive gaming history pre-podcast.
So I don't have any moments pre-podcast that would come to mind as specifically would have cracked my top 6.
Okay.
There were some fantastic moments from my early gaming days, but all of mine happened to fall within that window. It wasn't intentional, but the vast majority of my gaming time and really, really good experiences, the ones that can kind of crack a list like this,
sure,
came after we launched the podcast. So
okay,
not intentionally, and I think you should feel free to not limit it. I know that my intro implied that it was just limited to the past 6 years. But no, this, feel free, go beyond the 6 years. We always tackle these lists differently anyway. So
That's true. So for me, mine are not in any ranked order. I didn't say this one's better than this one necessarily. I'm still going to say, number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. But I don't have them in a ascending list necessarily.
I did mine in an ascending list for once.
For once,
just kind of flip-flop.
Yeah, interesting. That's 2020 for you.
That's 2020. Yeah, I specifically recall in the early days of the Dukes, I did something like this, and it infuriated you. You were calling it like, all right, your number square, I guess, or your number triangle. And we're just talking about shapes at a certain point. This is not that for me, Sean. This is ranked in roughly an order that I would say fits.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Okay.
Number 6.
Well, Alex, why don't you kick us off? What's your ranked number 6?
My number 6, and as you'll hear throughout this, it's hard to pick any one single gaming experience. So in some cases, I've grouped experiences together.
Sure.
And this is something I've done here, but it's tied to one specific game. And it's a game that I don't think would be on my top 10 of all time because it doesn't fit what a top 10 game would typically look like. But it's a top 6 gaming experience for me. And that is Happy Salmon.
Oh.
And the various experiences around Happy Salmon.
Huh.
For folks who don't know, this is a very joyful, simple game from North Star Games. Comes in a salmon-shaped bag. Plays up to 6 players with the base salmon set. You can, of course, get the expansion, which is the same game, but just different colored cards to play with up to 12. I don't know why you do that. It plays perfectly fine at 6. But if you want to expand, go for it, I guess. It's very simple. You have various actions you're trying to do with other people. It's sort of a cooperative competitive game because you're racing to get all 12 of your cards out of your hand first. There's high-fiving, there's fist-bumping, there's switcherooing, switching places, there's the Happy Salmon, which if we were in person, Sean, we would absolutely do right now, and there'd be some sort of faint audio of this, but we can't do that, and it doesn't make sense to Happy Salmon yourself. In any case, when we first discovered this game, it was like elixir from the gaming gods, because this was at Dice Tower Con. And I played it once, and I played it a ton more times. You can play it loud, you can play it silent. But I remember specifically, it was late night at Dice Tower Con, and you were exhausted. But there was an invitation for you to play Dune.
Yep.
And you wanted to play Dune really badly. It's one of your favorite games. You love the IP. But it was very late, and you were very tired. I think that was a year where you'd gone to Disney at the early part of the trip.
That was our second Dice Tower Con. Oh,
for Dice Tower Con in Orlando.
Had the girls there with us. Oh.
And like magic, you decided to jump in and play this 45-second game, because each round of this doesn't take a ton of time. And a few rounds in, you were hooked. You named it your game of the con eventually. It perked you up enough to play Dune. You also hip-checked another convention goer into an adjacent table. Was it Anthony specifically?
It was Anthony. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. My friend Anthony, who I was at his wedding, met him at Dice Tower Con. And anyway, not one of my gaming experiences, but meeting Anthony was certainly an awesome experience. I guess it's tied in one of them later in the list. Anyway,
I salmon to win, Alex.
You do salmon to win. You also salmon to sabotage. One of my favorite other memories of this was at Empire, where I jokingly referenced, like, I wonder what would happen if you had a hidden trader mechanic in Happy Salmon, and you decided to put that into immediate action. And so I would go over to like high five, and you would say, yeah, high five me, and then you go, nope, nope, not a winning strategy for you. By the way, I tried to high five you more times than a reasonable human being should have tried to high five someone who was clearly trying to troll them. And then later in that same game, when I switched to switcheroo, you're like, yeah, switcheroo. It's like, great. And I tried to switch places with you, and then you didn't move. So it just became this like weird shoving match mid-game while everyone else is actually playing the game. It was fun.
Fool me 6 times, shame on me.
Yeah, that was definitely the case there. But it's a game that I played on a cruise. It was the only game I brought with me when I traveled around the world. During my hiatus from the podcast. It was the only one I packed with me. And it broke language barriers. It was perfect for, of course, new players. It was an experience that people really loved. It was a great traveling companion. And it's a game I continue to introduce to people. So as a gaming experience, hard not to have that on the list. And if that's number 6, we got some heavy hitters coming down the pipe.
Wow.
I actually think it probably should have been higher. in looking at my list, but what are you going to do? That's my
Okay.
number 6. Happy Salmon as a whole.
Very cool. My unranked number 6. This is probably 11 years ago now. This was the summer before my third and final year of law school. I was married at the time to my now ex-wife, who, we separated about 6 months later. But I was going to school in Tucson, University of Arizona, for law school, and I had an internship that summer up in Phoenix, which used to be my hometown. I had a great gaming community there. I played at Imperial Outpost, mostly tabletop games. Mostly tabletop miniatures games. But anyway, I had moved to Tucson, and I'd still remained close friends with a lot of people there. And I came back this summer. I was by myself. I was staying in my buddy Mitch's parents' house. I was actually house sitting for them. That worked out well. And I was just living it up in terms of gaming. You know, I had my old gaming crew. We were playing games all throughout the week. We were playing in role-playing games, all sorts of stuff. It was fantastic. I loved that summer so much. So we were playing, what were we playing? We were playing a role-playing game. It was either Werewolf the Apocalypse, the second edition, or we were playing the Warhammer 40,000 RPG. We had two different games going. I can't remember which one it was that night, but I was coming into the shop. I get a text from one of them saying, "Hey, we're not going to play something tonight, or we're not going to play the RPG tonight. We've got a surprise for you." Do you remember the story, Alex?
I don't know if I remember this story offhand.
Okay. So I walked in, and I saw our gaming group in the back of the shop. Shop was empty because we would usually, like, shop closed at like 8 or 9 on a weeknight, and then we'd still stay there gaming because we worked the shop, we had keys, we had access. And they were playing Magic the Gathering. They were playing M10. This was a shop that did not carry Magic at all, ever. Imperial Outpost never had Magic at that point. I had stopped playing years ago. In fact, right at the beginning of law school, I had sold my collection at the time for about $1,000. That's probably around about $20,000 worth of cards now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Messed up.
Yeah. But I had sworn off the game altogether by that point, and I was convinced I would never be back in. And even though I had sold off my collection just a few years before, I hadn't played in any real capacity in like 9 years. Yeah. So I figured I'm done with Magic. I am just done with Magic. And I walked in to see this play group, these good friends of mine, playing Magic, and I just felt destroyed. Like, what are you guys doing? What have you done to me? This is gonna wind up terribly, just terribly. And I was like yelling and screaming. I was like jokingly irate, but also kind of irate. They're all laughing. And I'm just like, you are the worst people, like just the worst. So I'm like, okay, fine. I picked up a bunch of packs. I'm like, what's a planeswalker? There's a new card type. I've learned how to use planeswalkers and just having a blast with it. And we're like, okay, but we're going to keep this super casual. It's just what we open. We'll trade cards like the game was intended to be played. No tournaments, nothing crazy. Okay. Within a week, I'm online buying singles.
Yep. Okay.
Of course, we start going around buying boxes of cards so that we can start drafting at the shop because we couldn't get them in quick enough. It's what it was. And I have now been in Magic. I will take breaks every now and then, but those breaks don't last more than a year or two. Last year, when we updated our top 10 list, Magic was my number 1 game of all time. And I said it probably should have been that from the year we started. And so I'm playing mostly Arena now. Even before COVID, I was playing mostly online. Magic the Gathering Arena is fantastic. And in fact, I just picked up some Commander decks just now. The Ikoria 2020 pre-constructed. I had Rory order me some in. So it's good. I mean, it's good. It's good that got me back in the game. It's a very vivid memory. People knew how bad this was going to be for me, and it was a good source of amusement for them. And it's a good memory. It's a very good memory. And it was towards the end of that summer, and it was I think it had like 2 weeks left maybe, and it was a good way to cap off that summer, which was really enjoyable. It was kind of like young Sean's last hurrah.
That was when you became a man.
When I became a man. So that's my number 6, getting dragged back in to Magic after a 9-year hiatus.
Number 5.
My number 5, again unranked. This is the first, maybe it's the first of 3 Alex related experiences.
Do we have this one in the same spot? Because mine is also a strong. This one is a strongly Sean related one for me in the number 5 slot.
Is it more of a positive experience for you or a negative experience?
Positive as a whole.
Okay, so this is not that one.
Uh-oh.
This is not that one. I think it's not that one. Okay, so okay, so this was a 4-player game. You, me, Raquel, and your girlfriend at the time, now ex. And we were playing Tom Vassell and Steve Avery's Nothing Personal.
Uh-huh.
Nothing Personal is a very interesting area control or area majority game. Kind of, you're trying to have the most influence over these mobsters who are in this pyramid hierarchy. And different mobsters that you have more influence of will give you certain special abilities. The person at the top, whoever controls the Don, I think, or the boss, is the Godfather, right? And there's this nice ring, great components. And the Godfather gets to basically break ties. There's this great like role-playing element associated with it. And Alex, cutthroat games are not your thing. They never will be. They never were. Cutthroat is bad, just bad. And this game encourages you to be cutthroat. It encourages you to make deals. It encourages you to go back on deals. And and for whatever reason in that game, Raquel and I just kept making the worst deals with you and your ex. And you guys kept taking the deals, and we would just backstab you in just the worst ways. Like there was even one that Raquel made, which I don't even think was technically allowed under the rules, because the rules say that deals are non-binding. By all means, deals are non-binding. But it was like a straight up mugging where Raquel told her, if you give me $3, I'll do this. And so she's like, here you go, here's $3. And then Raquel's like, not going to do it now. Thanks for the money. Like,
yep. This is not the worst game I've ever played in terms of quality, like in terms of merit of a game.
Right.
But it is my least favorite game I've ever played.
Yeah, it was really mean. I've had some great experiences playing this game. I remember a different play of it. I accused Raquel of acting like her mother. Boy, did her eyes get red. Oh boy, it was bad. It was bad. But anyway, that particular experience, I remember after you guys left, Raquel and I thinking, are they going to want to hang out with us still? And the similar conversation was being had on your end, right?
I think so. I've blacked a lot of that memory out of my mind. It was, that game was so rough. Just that mechanic that a game allows you to have non-binding deal making. Oh, it's rough. Really rough. It's my least favorite mechanic too. Oh.
Well, I think with a non-binding deal, like it needs to be, whatever's agreed upon needs to be exchanged at that time, right? Like if it's something for a future consideration, okay, that's non-binding. But if you're like, if you immediately give me this, I will give you this. That should, like I said, it was a straight up mugging. And I was so proud of Raquel. But I was like, oh, that's rough. Woof.
Can I say I've had a similar moment with Abby with Fog of Love where she pulled a heartbreaker off on me and ripped my character's heart out of its beating chest, and was very proud in that moment too, even though I was the victim of said heartbreaker. So I know that feeling too.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my number 5, playing some Nothing Personal.
Your thing. So by the way, as we've been talking, I've flip-flopped 2 of my rankings.
Okay.
And moved things around because I don't know. It maybe isn't as true of a ranking as I thought. Happy Salmon might need to be higher. Anyway, so this one was my number 4, but I moved it to number 5, and I'm going 5-4 back to back. It's not a huge deal, but Sean, this is going to be kind of a tit for tat move.
Okay.
Because if your number 5 is my pain, my number 5 is going to be your pain.
Uh-oh.
Do you know the memory I'm referring to?
You'll get into it. I'll probably.
So, over the course of my gaming time, I have a checkered history with tournaments. Sometimes they end in heartbreaking fashion for me.
Okay.
You're just shrugging. You're like,
yeah, it's
whatever.
fine. Yeah, it's fine.
It's an amazing. It's a combination of things for me, which I'll explain. Anyway, I have a checkered history with tournaments, especially Baseball Highlights 2045 First Mention tournaments. Coming up a little bit later, by the way, getting into that a little bit. This was a Blood Bowl tournament.
Oh,
you're thinking of something different then.
I thought you were talking about the Empire tournament for Baseball Highlights where it was you and me in the finals. Yeah, that's the one I won. You don't remember the wins as much as you remember the losses in that game. No, that wasn't what I was referring to. Thank you for reminding me. No, I'm referring to Blood Bowl, Sean. Yeah.
Okay, now this is more of a reaction that I was expecting.
Yeah.
So, Blood Bowl, for folks who don't know, miniatures game that's kind of taking the world of Warhammer and blending it with football. It has a lot of charts and tables and dice rolling, and there's some luck elements, but you can definitely out-strategy or out-tactic another player, so to speak. And this was the case in our game. I was leading very late, and Sean was on his last possession. And I think you were with the dwarves in that game?
Chaos Dwarves.
The Chaos Dwarves. And Sean had set up a wall of blocking to allow his one Chaos Dwarf with the ball to just waltz on into the end zone. It was going to be no issue. My folks were getting pushed around. There was nothing I could do. And there was just one last little setup move that Sean was doing to try and get this just sealed and ready to go, and it was game over. And in this game, you roll dice, and sometimes, depending on the situation, you're either super favored, meaning you basically get to pick the best result of the ones, or it can be where you're super unfavored and you're forced to take the worst result. Sean was in a position where he was super favored. You were rolling 3 dice, correct?
3 dice. 3 dice.
3 dice. As long as 1 in 6 on each of these 3 dice didn't occur at this one moment on this roll, you were going to be fine.
Yes.
And I'm already thinking this is over. The game's over. The tournament's over. The better player won, because in fairness with that game, you were the better player. This was not a case where I had outfoxed you and all of a sudden you kind of pulled something out of your butt. I was lucky to be leading in this game. And so it comes down to
real quick. Let's do the math here, right?
Yeah.
The only way I lose is if all 3 dice come up with the same symbol, like you said, 1 in 6, 1 in 6, 1 in 6.
Yep.
So I'm 99.6% to win off this one dice roll. 99.6.
And then you don't. The dice are rolled and you don't. Skull, skull, skull. Your player falls at the 1 yard line on their face pretty much, drops the ball. It's a turnover. The game is over. The tournament is over. And we both just looked at it. Just mouth open, jaw dropped. Like it was the timing of it. Any win is meaningful. I like winning in games. I really like beating Sean in games. I really like because when I first started playing games, I didn't beat Sean very often.
Right.
And that has evened out as the years have gone on, but it's still a huge thing for me anytime it happens. And that was a big moment. It's a memorable one. So, my number 5, the Blood Bowl tournament, and Sean coming up snake eyes, +1 snake eye at the worst possible time.
0.4%, Alex. 0.4%.
Number 4.
My number 4, speaking of 4 things, 0.4% number 4. My number 4 is more of a positive Sean memory.
Oh, good.
And this is one, Sean, I think you could probably predict if I had to guess. This is a game that we played in the very early days. It was one of our first reviews of the Dukes of Dice. Pathfinder, the adventure card game.
Let's say this is my 4 also then.
Is
Because I figured there would be a crossover here.
Well, let's talk about it together.
Yeah.
So this was one that, of course, you had bought at the time. You invited me to play. And as part of recording the Dukes of Dice episodes, we'd come over and oftentimes we'd play that longer than we would record the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It would become whole things. Whole weekends would disappear sometimes just to this game, to playing through this campaign. We each had 2 characters. We marched on through. We had our failures. We had our successes. But we were working together as a team. It was something we were super engaged in. But there was a clear strongest individual character.
Heck yeah.
Ezrin, the God Mage. Ezrin wiped the floor with the final combat of that. And yeah, Sean, I mean, we remember talking about this.
Yeah.
It felt so thematic in that moment of...
Yeah, it was really interesting. So let me say this too. This game is a bear to set up. You have to construct all these decks ahead of time.
Yeah.
Not for you, the player, but for the encounters. And we had this great rhythm to it. Like we were able to do it really quickly. We had like a shorthand. It worked great. It was great to watch these characters develop as you get more skills, as you add things to your deck. You're hoping certain cards will come up in an encounter because you really want your character to get this particular ally or whatever. So it was just really cool. And you really became invested in these characters. But yeah, that last scenario where you're basically fighting like a titan, like an elder god titan type thing. And Ezrin was just head and shoulders above everyone else. All of the 3 other characters that we had. Ezrin was super powerful. He was, talk about like the probability of dice, like it was all 99% because he was just in God mode at this point. And he shrugged everything off. He was doing all of the quote unquote DPS to, oh man, he was so good. And you could just sense in the moment, because basically the last thing that happens, you acquire a card, which is hilarious because there's no use for this card at this point, but you acquire it and it's this particular, I forget what it was exactly, but it's this particular thing that this Titan, this elder god was wearing.
Was it a
like,
crown?
Like the Helm of Greed or something like that. Crown of Greed.
Know.
And anyway, I could just like, it just was playing in my head like a cinematic experience where everyone's just like looking at Ezrin like, guys, what is happening here? And he's approaching the jewelry, whatever it is, and he's putting it on, and everyone's like, do we let this happen? Are we letting this happen? And he's now like ascended to godhood. Like it was just, and we weren't like saying anything, we weren't role playing anything, but it was happening. Like it was such a cool experience.
It was. And we had tried playing the Seafaring campaign, and we went a little ways through that, and it didn't really...
We had extra players.
Yeah, that made it harder.
Yeah.
It was just the 2 of us. That was the winning formula for that game for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a system we'll ever have a chance to return to, which is a shame. But for the time, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
It sure was.
Played through the whole campaign too. So
yeah.
That's my number 4, and I guess also Sean's.
That's mine
4.
as well.
Number 3.
All right. Well, my number 3 then. This will be a light one, a shorter one. So playing with Chewy has been a lot of fun. She, I want to be careful not to make her do things that she doesn't want to. And she wants to play games. She knows that I love games. She has a lot of kids games that she likes. She's very excited. We've tried to play some more adult games. We've played Splendor the other night. What was it we were trying to play the other night? No, it wasn't an adult game. We were playing It Happens, which is a Feld game. Have you ever heard of It Happens? It's a kid Feld game.
I've heard of it.
It was a little bit advanced for her. She wasn't super crazy about it. But anyway, one of the things I've really enjoyed is watching her teach games. So after she and I have played, we might on another night or whatever bring in Raquel or Mariah, and she wants to teach the games, and it's super cool. Like, it's just super cool to watch. And most recently, that happened with Llama, the Reiner Knizia game. That was a Spiel nominee, right? Last year.
Yes, it absolutely was. Yep.
And it's a very simple game. You're basically trying to shed cards from your hand. If the one is out, then deck is made up of cards 1 through 6 plus the llama. If a 1 is out and it's your turn, you can play a 1 or a 2 on it. If a 5 is out, you can play a 5 or a 6. If a 6 is out, you can play a 6 or a llama, and then it starts over. So pretty simple. But still, watching her explain it was just really cool. Every now and then she'll kind of look at me for some reassurance, or she'll forget something and she'll look at me to supply it. And that's great. So it's cool. It's cool watching her understand things and then communicate that. And it's a cool thing to think about. I think we kind of take it for granted a lot of times, teaching rules, but I don't know. It's been really cool to watch, and I'm excited. I'm excited to, at some point, hopefully, give her a GMT war game and say, hey, you're responsible for learning this and teaching me. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. We'll start off with Combat Commander.
Someday, Sean.
So yeah, that's my number 3, watching Chewie teach games.
Oh, that's a sweet one.
Yeah.
I like that. My number 3, I don't know if this will be on your list, Sean, but I couldn't not have it on, as crazy and weird as this was. This was shortly after I had moved away from Albuquerque to St. Louis. The Unrivaled Tournament in Las Vegas, Nevada. This was a surreal experience in so many ways. First off, Duke Suzanne had kind of made the connection initially. They were looking for content creators within the hobby space to cover this event, which was meant to be a board game championship.
Right.
You could win $10,000 playing King of Tokyo was the concept of this. The games themselves, I think Ascension was one of them. Was King of Tokyo one at the time? I
don't remember. A lot of lesser known games.
Yes. It was meant as an opportunity, I think, too, for publishers to try and get the game's name out there, which I experienced later on. Because I had just started working for Gray Fox Games and built up some. Anyway, we got pulled into, hey, would you like to get flown out to Las Vegas to cover this board game tournament?
Flown out, yeah.
Yeah, flown out. And there was part of us that was like, do they know we're like, we have some followers, but we're not that big. Are they aware of this? What are they expecting? Is this a scam? Is this a thing? Like,
right.
Is this real? And it was real. For 1 year, this was a thing that happened in Las Vegas. They spent an ungodly amount of money. They spent
so much money. A
ton of money, because they had a bunch of these satellite tournaments. They then flew the winners of the satellite tournaments out and put them up in hotels for free. And by the way, we made a request, which I thought was a pretty ballsy request. Hey, can we get 2 hotel rooms? Because Sean, you wanted to come out there with Raquel.
Yeah, I paid for her. I paid for her airfare, but I said, because they were going to put us in a room together, you and I. I'm just like, could we have a second room?
And they're like, yeah, whatever, no problem. We're literally made of money in this moment. So there were some odd experiences. The first odd experience, beyond the fact that this actually all happened and was real, and the tickets were legit, and it was a thing. It wasn't some sort of scam. It was like a nice hotel on the Strip in Vegas.
Yeah.
What hotel was it? Do you remember?
That was it was Bally's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, anyway, the one that I remember is you go to this Dave & Buster's knockoff, which was owned by the company.
It's not a knockoff. It's called GameWorks.
GameWorks,
just a different. Yeah, they have them in Arizona.
GameWorks owned this tournament. Was the parent company of, or at least the parent company
was
had.
It?
I don't know what these. Yes, absolutely true.
I
don't know what the relationship is as a whole, but either the same parent company owned both, or the company that, anyway, I don't know what the relationship was, but that's why that event was there. I know that for sure. We were in the back VIP bowling alley section.
So weird.
Of this. It was weird. There was a ton of free food. It was an open bar, completely open bar. It was a costume party.
Open bar for some, include like, because there were like VIP and then there were like super VIP, and we were super VIP who had the open bar. It was weird.
Yeah, open bar, free food. The one thing that we didn't talk about at the time, and probably is the biggest journalistic gaffe in the history of the Dukes of Dice, because I think we were trying to be nice. They were a little weird in terms of hiring a lot of models.
Yeah.
They hired a ton of models just to kind of be around and be there with the VIPs. And so they, all of these nerds just kind of schmoozing up and talking with these lovely women, but not folks who are, I think, likely gamers by nature. Like, that was not the reason they were there. But on the positive side of that, we were at the bar and just had a cool conversation with Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
We just talked with him.
That's also where we met Glory Hound, who hung out with her that night.
That's right. Yeah, that was great. But the Will Wheaton thing was cool, not just because, hey, I have a picture with Will Wheaton. I used it on my Tinder profile, which that may or may not come into play as part of a later gaming moment. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds more scandalous than it is. No, but I remember that. I also remember we were set to go interview Will Wheaton for the Dukes of Dice podcast. They gave us some of his time, and we actually ended up with a lot more of his time than we were expecting to have.
Yeah.
Because he genuinely seemed to want to talk board games and hang out. He was super
weird.
cool. But they made it very clear before we did this interview, thou shalt not ask about Star Trek.
Yeah, which is weird.
Don't talk about Star Trek. We had an interview request where they wanted to do Star Trek trading cards or something, and he turned it down. And we're only doing this because he's here to talk about board games. He's here to talk about the event. Do not ask about Star Trek. And we're like, yeah, okay, fine. And so we talked about board games the whole time. We talked about tabletop, and there was that. There was the weird. They had the show and the stage with the finals where people were playing for, again, 5 figures of cash, playing a board game to see who was going to come away winning that. They had a marching band in there. They had puppeteers. They pulled out all the stops for this event. It made no sense, but we got to play blackjack together. We got to hang out together. It was soon after I had moved away from Albuquerque. It was a cool moment in that way. It was surreal. It will never happen again in that way. It was just this kind of one-time thing. I later, when I was with Gray Fox, we tried to get Champions of Midgard as a tournament game. As part of that, and we were accepted, and they started running satellite events, and then all of a sudden they just pulled the plug on it.
Yeah.
And we were out 400 copies of Champions of Midgard as a result of that.
Really?
400 copies.
Wow.
Yeah, just kind of mostly lost to the wind. I think we got some of them back, but we didn't get all of them back. Anyway, that's unrivaled. My number 3 gaming experience of all time.
Number 2.
Number 2, I hinted at this just a second ago, that my Tinder profile would come into play with this. And this had to be somewhere on the list, and probably pretty high on the list. It's a cold Sunday in February. Sunny, but cold. And I have pulled up to Pieces, board game, bar, library, cafe here in St. Louis. And I'm there on a first date with someone I've been talking to for the past week. That person was Abby. I had swiped on her earlier. She matched with me during the Super Bowl. I was watching, I was just remembering this the other day, by the way, Sean. It was one of the first and only Super Bowls I've watched alone. Mm-hmm. I tend to watch those in groups, or kind of at least have some kind of presence around the Super Bowl. It's an event I like to be tuned in for, like a lot of Americans, I guess. And I was, for this one, because I just moved to St. Louis, was in a bar across the street from my apartment, was there kind of drinking alone, enjoying some of the food, and left at halftime, was home. And she matched with me. We talked, and it turned into a first date. And that first date, we played Patchwork, was the very first game we played together. And then we followed that up with Codenames Duet. And it was really refreshing to be on a first date where I felt like I could kind of share all of me. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I had to hold back on the nerdy side or the geeky side. I felt like I could be fully myself. And she was game. She loved puzzles at the time, had played euchre a lot growing up, so had a gamery sense, but certainly did not consider herself a gamer, but was willing to play, willing to try. And we had a couple drinks after that, just sat and talked for a long while, went for a walk in Tower Grove Park, where I eventually proposed to her, all on that first date. But it started with a gaming experience. And interestingly enough, not how it was intended or planned, but the marriage is at the Gamer's Ranch, which, in thinking about it, that experience too would have been, I guess, not the marriage, the wedding, which will be, I guess, a top 6 life experience, you would hope. The one retreat that I was at the Gamer's Ranch, I think also would be a worthy top 6 gaming moment, but it's too late. I've already made my list, and there's one moment that's past all of these. That place is amazing. It's one of my top favorite places in the world. In any case, it's kind of cool that it's kind of come full circle, that we played this game on our very first date. I proposed to her in a park. We went on our very first date, and we're going to a Gamer's Ranch to get married. Again, not intentional. Probably not what Abby would prefer, in all honesty. She wishes the ranch was named something else, so for the rest of her life, she wouldn't have to tell people she got married at the Gamer's Ranch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Okay.
COVID happens, I guess. So that's my number 2 gaming memory. My first date with Abby at Pieces.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, my number 2 is kind of a collection of experiences, like you mentioned before. So I have a question, Alex. Have you ever heard me, either on the podcast or just talking, have you ever heard me mention an old friend named Anthony P? Does that name sound at all familiar?
No, I know an Anthony, but it's not the Anthony we know.
No. So this was an Anthony, a friend of mine from 2000, from about 2003 to 2010.
Okay.
And I would say one of my best friends in that time period. Probably my best friend in that time period. And you have never heard me mention him.
Not once.
When I moved from Phoenix to Tucson, we stayed very close. In fact, we would typically be online every night together, either playing a game together, playing an MMO together, or we were playing Magic Online, or I'd be painting miniatures and we'd just be talking like every night, like kind of weird. Like we were incredibly close. And that's, again, he was one of my gaming buddies in Phoenix. We played miniatures games. He was there that night when I got reintroduced back to Magic. And then for whatever reason, we lost touch when I moved to Albuquerque. And I cannot tell you why. There was no falling out. There was nothing. There was no reason. And to this day, we have had zero contact in like 9 years. And I don't know why. Like, I don't know why, like, I wouldn't, I mean, I should probably go message him as soon as
we're right now.
Here. Yeah. Like, it's weird. It's because I can't, it's like we were super close. But anyway, man, now I'm like really bummed out.
Are you Facebook friends, or like have you tracked his life?
He was never on Facebook. He was about 6 years younger than me. And like we had like, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was a cool relationship. We were good friends. So even when I moved to Phoenix to Tucson, for law school, like I said, we were close contact just about every day. My ex at the time, she would go to bed super early, and then he and I would stay up all night hanging out online. And he and I were very much in the competitive miniature scene, Warhammer 40,000, Lord of the Rings miniatures games. And he was an excellent tactical player. He was excellent. I was the better painter. In fact, I wound up painting a bunch of his armies. He would commission me to paint a bunch of his stuff. And what we would do, he would drive down about once every 3 months from Phoenix to Tucson, and we would just have a crazy gaming weekend, usually preparing for some tournament that was coming up. And so one time we were preparing for a grand tournament in Las Vegas. So he came down. We had the same list. We decided to play the exact same list. He had built one army. I'd built one army, my prized Sons of Sec, Imperial Guardsmen for Warhammer 40,000. And we spent that entire weekend playing all of the top armies in the meta against our list to test them out. And he and I could play, normally at that time, Warhammer 40,000 is like a 2.5 hour game. He and I could play in like 90 minutes or less. Because we both knew the rules really well. We both there was a shorthand. We could just play super quick, and we busted out like 12 games over 2 days to test out these lists. We had a big tournament for Lord of the Rings coming up some other month. And so we came down, and same thing. We played our lists against all of the lists that we were expecting in the field. And then one weekend, I remember, weren't doing tournament prep, but we had just started playing this other version of Warhammer called Warhammer Epic, where the miniatures are much smaller, but you have a bunch more of them, and all of these big tanks. And I had a Chaos Army, and he had his Marine Art? No, he had his Imperial Guardsmen. And I remember I had surprised him because I was going to build this Eldar army and have it ready for him and not tell him anything about it. And I remember I stayed up for 24 hours or 36 hours straight painting this army to have it ready for him to show up in time. And
Wow.
then we just great weekend. These weekends were so much fun. They were just so much fun. And it is just a tragedy. Oh, here's the other thing. One of my favorite series is book series is Dresden Files. Talked about it before on the podcast. Latest book just came out a couple weeks ago. Read it in 3 days. It was fantastic. He was so into the Dresden Files, and I remember he'd be talking like, "Oh, I can't wait for this book to come out. The new one's coming out next week." And I'd be like, "All right, whatever." I didn't care. And even after I got into the Dresden Files, which was his favorite book series, I never thought to like, "Oh my God, I should tell him I'm like a huge Dresden Files fan now." It's super weird. It makes zero sense. There is no reason for us to have completely lost contact like that. So
I hope the reunion goes well.
yeah. I'm gonna email him tonight.
Okay.
And I will report back.
Yeah, I please do. This is the Dukes of Diet is taking a break next episode. It's
Okay.
the Dukes of Anthony P.
He was a very good friend, and it makes me, I'm very sad now.
Yeah, I can understand why. Because I was waiting for the shoe to drop, and then he stole my TV and burned my car. Like I was waiting for the thing that drove you,
No.
and it's nothing.
It's not. It was nothing. It was nothing.
Weird.
Yeah, super weird. So that's my
your
number two.
Number 1.
All right, my number one. This is a much more upbeat one. My number one is really just a con, and it's going to be our first Dice Tower con that we went to. Is this yours? Is this your number one?
I broadened it out. To Dice Tower Con as a whole.
Okay.
But we're on the absolute same page with this.
Yeah. So for you, this was your first con, right?
Yes.
And this was our first Dice Tower Con. I forget, the podcast was just under a year old at that point. We were not yet part of the Dice Tower network, but we decided we wanted to go to the con. And it was just a great experience. And some of the highlights, this was the first time we hung out with Suze, right? Suzanne Sheldon. And it's when we really became friends with her, right? And that friendship has continued. It's the first time, I think me more so than you initially, but I hung out with Berkey, right? And became friends with Berkey at that con. I remember teaching him Orleans. It's when I saw Ellie, my buddy Ellie, who I've mentioned before. We grew up gaming friends from high school. He was a groomsman in my first wedding. But we hadn't seen each other in like 6 years. Like, we'd stayed in contact, but we hadn't, I think it had been that long, maybe less, but still a long time. And he had lived in Florida. He came up. So it was just super cool. We did a bunch of fun stuff. I went with Suze and Steve Avery and Bonacor and Zev from Z-Man Games at the time. We did my first escape room. Just so much cool stuff happened at this particular Dice Tower Con, and cool relationships from it. Since that time, Ellie and I have been in much closer contact. We see each other much more often. Like we've made an effort to do that. It was a great experience for me. Just on that first con, and I know you kind of broadened it out, but
Yeah. Well, and was Anthony the first one or was it the second year?
he was there at the first one.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was another person that I met who, that relationship evolved, right? We were sitting and looking for another player to join us, and he was an extra person just wandering around and joined us. Anthony Harlan, awesome dude. Would meet up with him kind of as tradition every con after that. You had stopped coming to Dice Tower Con, but I was there for work, and I met him as he kind of went through the ups and downs of life, including meeting his girlfriend, who was then his fiancée, and then going to his wedding, all based off of this one weird kind of summer camp-ish Dice Tower Con type place. So it all started at that con. The one other specific story I wrote down, because I wrote down a whole number of notes. First of all, this is the first con I ever played Baseball Highlights 2045 at.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever played that game.
Yeah.
I played it with Max from Albuquerque. We both kind of went to go demo it at the same time, and I was blown away by that game. But the other one I remember is, of course, Pimento 3, which is a classic Dukes of Dice story. It was a very, very late night playing Codenames. This was before Codenames was out and about, really.
Yeah.
It was just coming out. And Suzanne's team, she was the clue giver, had 3 things left to go, and our team had 1. And one of the 3 that she had to give out was Olive, I think was the thing on the board.
Right.
And she gave out the clue Pimento 1. And her team was like, you've made it literally impossible for us to win. Like, you have to, like, this clue is terrible. She's like, Pimento 3? And, of course, team went down in flames. We were laughing like crazy. I also remember we were recording the podcast at the con. And we were reviewing Mysterium.
Right. The Polish version.
The Polish version of Mysterium. And the publisher, who was it?
Chevy Dodd.
Yeah, Chevy Dodd was sitting at the table as we were talking through the ups and downs of that game.
Well, and I was talking about how much I hated it.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, you didn't hate it. It was like a 3 at the time. It was before we came up with the 6-point scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by came up with, I mean borrowed from another podcast.
Many podcasts. Yeah.
Many other podcasts. So no, in any case, those are the main things I remember from that specific first Dice Tower Con. Anything else that you recall?
No, I mean, yeah, that we kind of hit all of the high points. It was a ton of fun. Like it was great.
So adding to that, this was my first ever con. I was super nervous, really incredibly nervous to be there. And Suzanne was, I mean, she continues to be kind of my big sister in a lot of ways. And she was my big sister at that con. She made sure I always had someone to game with and kind of showed me the ropes and knew so many people. And it was this kind of magical moment where this hobby took an even deeper hold in me than it had before. I learned so many new games. I met so many people. I enjoyed coming to cons ever since. And Dice Tower Con, even after, I've been to Essen now. I've been to Gen Con multiple times. I've been to Geekway to the West and PAX Unplugged. I've been to a lot of these conventions, BGG Con even. This con has still held a special place in my heart because it's continued to deliver those kinds of experiences and memories. I'll give you some more examples, Sean. The one moment of the mind where we played blind, and I've told this story a million times, but basically we were pulling off a magic trick. We all stood up and went nuts. The rest of the con hall, not knowing what was happening, also went nuts, and this sort of like mock applause happened, and people were applauding and had no idea why they were applauding at Dice Tower Con in this main gaming hall, and it was great. We'll never forget that. I also won't forget playing Werewords with you when you were very tired, and you were the werewolf. I was the mayor, and the word was, I think, Cheetos.
Yes.
And you thought it was Cheerios, or
Right.
vice versa. It was some swapped version of that. And so you gave clues that made you look incredibly suspicious. And I just relished in it because I was able to get away with being a werewolf myself. Yeah, sorry, I mistold this. You weren't a werewolf.
I was
People
not.
thought
right,
you were.
Right.
Yeah, you were the mayor, not a werewolf. People thought you were. Anyway, completely botched the story, but it's really memorable as a moment. The 32-team Baseball Highlights 2045 tournament, and really all other Baseball Highlights 2045 tourneys. Just that whole convention scene, the terrible food in the hotel. I mean, not terrible, but not great either. Overpriced, but it was home. This was the Caribe Royale for the vast majority of the times. Not the very first con,
Right.
but the one subsequent to it was this weird little summer getaway for half a week a year. You could go kind of chill by the pool. And I actually didn't swim at any Dice Tower Con until the most recent one I attended. The real shame of it is it's this year when it was supposed to happen, obviously before COVID occurred, was going to be in kind of a different version, a smaller version at a different location, no longer the Caribe Royale. And it's possible that much like Unrivaled, it's an experience that in that form will not exist again.
Right.
Which is a real shame. Dice Towers continue to exist in terms of conventions, right? There's Dice Tower West. I'm sure there will be other versions of this as things go on. It's not a dead IP by any means, but there was something special about that place and that time that's going to be hard to replicate, but will always be burned into my mind. For me, there's just so many things that have happened at Dice Tower Con that it had to be a number one for me.
Real quick, do you remember the scary moment at the second Dice Tower Con we went to when Chewie was there?
What scary moment specifically?
So it was late night. We were in the pool. You weren't there, but we told you about it. We were in the pool. It was me and I think Mariah was there too, Chewie and Raquel. We were all in the pool. Chewie had her little floaties on. We're all having fun. And there's this slide that is closed. There's a gate to it that's closed.
Yep.
And Chewie managed to get up on the slide, the big slide with like no major railing on the side. And she started climbing up, no problem. And it was like 10, 15 feet high. Like she could have easily just like gone off the edge onto the concrete. And I remember jumping up onto the slide, and I'm wet and I'm a big guy, and I just kept slipping down. I couldn't go after her. She was able to climb somehow, but I just kept slipping down, and it was so scary. And so finally I got out. Raquel jumps on the slide. She's trying to climb after her. She can't get her. I go to the gate. The gate is locked. I can say this now because the statute of limitations has expired. I ripped the gate off of its hinges somehow. I just hulked out, ripped the gate off so I could run up the stairs to the top of the slide. I slid down very carefully, grabbed her. Whew. I destroyed the gate at the Hotel Caribe Royale.
Man. Yeah. I still get promotional material for the Caribe Royale from time to time in my email.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll come back there someday. I don't know, but probably won't be for Dice Tower Con and won't be the same feel or same vibe, which is a shame. It was an amazing experience, and there have been some cons that have come close. BGG Con is great. Geekway is great. But in terms of place in my heart, I don't think there's anything that's ever going to top that for me. So that's my number one gaming experience of all time.
Very cool.
There we go. So that is going to do it for our top 6. But of course, the Guild had some thoughts on this, Sean. Adam Dalton referenced Gen Con 2008. Tomb came out that year. We were playing in the open board game area with my buddy Dave and a couple others. In Tomb, you're a party of adventurers going into, Tomb. My party went into a room to fight the monster and get the treasure. My wizard conjured a spell called Great Fireball or something along those lines. Basically, it lets you roll a ton of dice, but any extra damage rolled beyond what the monster needed had to be applied to your party. I rolled a hit on nearly every single die, destroying not only the monster, but my whole party as well. My buddy Dave immediately took his party into that room, picked up the treasure for my charred remains, and got on out. We laughed so hard we were crying. Tomb isn't a great game, but such a great memory that Dave and I still talk about today. Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Don Gilstrap, he gave his top 6. Here's his number 1. The first gaming convention, he sat down to a Friday night game of Toon, and the game master said, okay, roll 2d6. Wait, you came to a gaming convention without dice? But yeah, he says it's a positive memory.
That would be me, by the way.
Right.
Show up to a gaming convention completely unprepared.
Sure.
So makes total sense. The Name Father had a robust top 6 as well, but his number 1 was meeting podcasting friends from around the world in person. Myself at PAX Unplugged in 2018, New York Beer and Pretzels with Leon from the Dice Men Cometh and Dice Wife Sarah, Philip Millman, my arch nemesis and rival, and his wife and his trophy in Massachusetts, and many more. He had a number of others, but the moral of the story for his top 6 was, it's never the games, it's always the people.
And then Brett Mowers says, one of my favorite gaming experiences I can remember was 2 years ago at PAX Unplugged. It was just past midnight. It was cold and dark outside. After a long day of convention work for Monochromatic Wolf Play experiences, I was rewarded with the worst butt whooping in Keyforge by Alex's, can't remember the name, the immovable deck. What was the name, Alex?
I know the name. Yep, the name is Smithison, the Immovable.
So your Keyforge deck, yeah.
Yep.
So he got wrecked, all while my wife watched on with glee. Never mind that a few weeks later on the podcast, when Sir Alex mentioned this beatdown in his PAX recap, all to my wife's delight. Wouldn't trade that round of Keyforge for anything. Glad to be a part of this thing called the Duchy.
I can tell you there is another person, Jake from the Draft Mechanic podcast, who has a very different take on getting a beatdown from Smithison, the Immovable.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times, Brett. That Keyforge has fallen so far off the radar. I still have my set of it in the back bedroom, but I have not played that game in a long time. I really enjoyed it. I know you're well past it, Sean. I know you're over Keyforge at this point.
Rediscovered magic.
Yeah, that's fair. As my former boss would say, Keyforge, magic for dummies. Anyway, BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, top gaming experiences of all time, off the top of my head, it would be those absolutely ridiculous games of QE at Gen Con last year. I was in one of those games. BJ, when BJ is playing a game terribly, it is a joy. It is an absolute joy to watch BJ play a game badly. And yeah, it was absurd. There were good times and dumb bids, and it was a lot of fun. QE can definitely lend itself to those kinds of experiences at cons. So there you have it, Sean. Top 6 gaming experiences of all time. Any thoughts to wrap all this up? Any way to kind of summarize? I'm not sure there's an easy way to do it.
No, I thought this was kind of difficult because there's a ton of stuff I could have included. Playing Magic in high school speaking of Keyforge, Keyforge kind of recaptured that initial feeling of Magic when everything was just new and there weren't deck lists that you could find online. And there was this, experimentation and discovery. Like that was something. All of the different gaming experiences in high school with my buddies. I feel like it hardly touched on anything at Empire. This was difficult. This was actually pretty difficult for me. But it was fun. It was fun to kind of go back and think through it all. And hey, if I get out of this a reconnection to a very dear friend, that would be a good thing.
Don't start a podcast with him and
Okay.
Cut me out of it. All right.
We'll do a Dresden Files podcast. Ooh.
Oh, that's fine.
Actually,
I've not read any Dresden Files anyway.
Huh.
So that's fine. Cool. Well, that's it for our top 6. It's the annual report. It's the summary of where we are, who we are, what's going on in life, what's going on with the podcast. It is the state of the Duchy, prepared lovingly in advance by Sean Ramirez, attorney at law, and head Duke editor, and General Duke, and original person who came up with this idea. Sean, have you prepared any remarks for this year's State of the Duchy?
No,
Okay.
There's never been prepared remarks.
How is the state of the Duchy, Sean?
It's fine. It's quarantined. I mean, right?
This is the first time that you haven't said these exact words.
I know.
The state of the Duchy is strong. It's the first time you haven't gone on that.
Because it's not. The Duchy is wearing masks and staying 6 feet away, and it's tough. It's tough to review board games, and it's tough to we have to give quarantine caveats because we only played these games at 2 players or whatever. So it's weird. It's a weird year. It's another, I hate to say it this way, but it's another year of kind of treading water. I don't necessarily mean that in the negative connotation. Ever since I took over the law firm, I've been less focused on growth of the podcast, and that's a reality, and that's something I'm okay with. Are you okay with that, Alex?
It's acceptance. It's we don't do this for a ton of listeners, a ton of fame, because if you look at the Golden Geek voting, we ain't getting that. I don't have a good eye on listenership kind of week over week. Certainly with people not driving, it was going to be hurt no matter what. But it's not something we used to obsess over that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obsess over it. And it just isn't a thing we obsess over, which I think is kind of liberating in a way. It lets us, focus on the show and enjoy the show. And it gives us this freedom. It's sort of the freedom of not, this is a change that's not intentional, but kind of came about of you being too busy to ask for review copies.
Right.
We don't ask for review copies, and we might still get some. Some folks will occasionally message our very unresponsive Facebook page asking if we want to review something or take a look at something. But the majority of what we talk about is not review copies. It's stuff that we've scooped up from Miniature Market, gotten on our own. Even I know tons of people at Restoration. It would not have been hard for us. We have a review coming up next week. Spoiler of Unmatched Cobble and Fog. Mm-hmm. Too lazy to even really ask for that in this situation.
Yeah.
But it is liberating in a sense. It kind of gives us this freedom of thought and freedom of not having to qualify reviews and just being able to say, this is what I think about this game. I bought it. This wasn't given to us. It wasn't a free thing. This is what I think about this straight up. And there's also some liberation of not trying to chase listeners. And is there an alternate reality in which we're much larger and have a big fan base and could do a live show with a ton of people in attendance? I guess, but the reality we're in is the reality we're in, and I'm going to be looking to build a family within the next year, and that's going to. I've been enough of a flake without having my own law firm or a family to raise. I can't imagine when I actually have stuff legitimately on my plate how that's going to be, but. No, it ebbs and flows. Like I've taken over a lot of the posting stuff in the guild and wrangling. I don't know. Responsibilities shift, but the relationship between us and the dynamic continues. And I still have fun doing the show. And I think as long as we have fun doing it, it's going to keep going in some form. I haven't had any thoughts of it ending. There have been fears at times when blow-ups between us relationally threatened to end the show. But those are fewer and further between than they used to be.
Sure.
And I feel less of a threat of that. I don't know. If you had to predict, how does the Dukes of Dice end?
With a blowout. Yeah. So if you and I go for 9 years without talking, there'll probably be a reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's a very good point.
No, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think if it got to a point where it just wasn't fun anymore, I don't know. But what I will say is that I have felt a little bit more like a fraud lately.
Okay.
And let me explain. So when we first started, it's kind of fake it till you make it type thing. But I felt like I really had my thumb on the pulse of the gaming industry, sort of, I thought I did at least. But I was watching a bunch of videos all the time, following gaming news fervently. But like recently, even pre-COVID, obviously, that kind of tapered off. And it's because as I became less obsessed with trying to own every new game and realizing, whoa, this is too many games. Empire is available and we can kind of cycle games through Empire. But I don't know. I not that I'm still Cult of the New, but I just felt like I was a different type of Cult of the New. And then especially as I've wanted to play more war games and that's more of an interest in realizing that there's a limited audience for that among our listeners. And so I don't want to spend, too much time not boring people, but it's a different style of gaming. So I've felt very disconnected, so much so that when there was voting on the Dice Tower Awards this last year, I was like, holy cow, like I have hardly touched any of these games. Whereas in years past, I remember like, okay, the nominees came out and, oh, I haven't played these 5 games. Okay, I'm going to work at playing these 5 games. And now it's like, oh, I haven't played these 40 games. I can't even vote on this particular category. Like
Right.
it feels bad for me to put some weight on the scale when it's not an informed opinion. So it's weird. It's certainly weird. I feel like now I'm someone who has played a lot of games, knows a lot of games, has very defined opinions of games. And it's fine. That's fine. I don't think I'd consider myself like an expert on the board game hobby though.
Interesting.
Or industry. I think maybe that's it. Maybe it's because you were actually in the industry and all of my perceptions were based on what I thought, on conjecture, what people who were in the industry told me, and kind of realizing there's a lot more going on that I don't really know about. And so I don't want to presume to consider myself an industry expert. If that makes sense.
Industry expert Alex Goldsmith here, marketing wunderkind behind such amazing hits as City of Gears and Reapers of Midgard. And I don't know. I don't know if I consider myself an industry expert, even having spent 2 years in the industry, right? I know the other side of it. I've run Kickstarters. I know some of the pressures there. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in how to do a very good job at it based on track record. So I'm not, I don't know. I feel like kind of a fraud in that way too, in a sense. Like I have some experience, sure, but by no means am I an expert. I don't think. I am sort of tracking the hobby. I have a sense of some of the things that are hot. I know Fort is hotter than the surface of the sun right now, in terms of a game, and I know why, having played it. And it's interesting to be in a hobby long enough to where you can say, oh, this is borrowing from that, or oh, this is taking this mechanic and kind of using it in this way. This is using the follow mechanic. It's interesting to see that evolution and that deepening of your knowledge occur. I'm still hunting, trying to play more games. I'm trying to get 100 new games played before the end of the year, and I'm tracking it in BG Stats, which for me is a nuts thing to do. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
I think I remember that, but yeah.
Yeah, I BG Stats on my phone, and I'm tracking not all plays, but any new plays I come across, which is weird for me. I would have I openly disdain that.
Yeah.
In the early days of the show.
Yeah.
There are a number of things I said in the early days of the show that didn't make any sense. Anyway, we've talked about kind of that evolution. Right now, we're doing this, and it's still fun. I'm excited, really excited for next week's review, next episode's review. Week is no longer accurate and hasn't been for a long time.
Nope.
But that was wild. Anyway, I'm excited for the next review. I'm excited for the future reviews, and I'm excited to see how the show evolves, right? I think the biggest evolution sort of is adding in first impressions of a game to our review sections, and also not being a slave remotely to the format of the show, mainly due to the COVID situation and everything that's occurred there. But it's stayed pretty much the same format since. I don't know if we'll have any earth-shattering changes in the year to come. Any goals in the year to come, Sean?
Yeah, just to be able to start playing games again with like people. I'll be honest. So last night, Wednesday night, was the first time I had played games on a Wednesday night online in about a month. And it was with Ellie. We played Imperial Struggle on Vassal. But our regular Wednesday night Dukes crew, we had been playing games on Tabletopia, or whatever, on Wednesday nights, but I just hadn't had the energy to play. Like there was a little bit of an extra energy requirement playing here at the house online. The playing on like Tabletopia, it's not super easy, right? Especially if you're learning a game brand new and you're dealing with the interface. And then there's distractions here at the house, Chewy's asking me for stuff or whatever. So I just haven't had the energy to play it. And I miss that. Like it's no issues with any of the people that we play with. I miss playing with them. And I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. Like everything going on is just kind of draining. So I don't know if it's a goal per se, but I would like to be able to get back into the swing of things, but that goes without saying, right? Who else doesn't want that to happen, but safely?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I anticipate a lot of life changes happening for me in the next year. And my goal is to make sure this stays fun and kind of a grounding part and something that kind of keeps me really tied to the hobby in the year to come. I'm still playing a ton of games. I don't have the same issue that you have on that front necessarily. But I do anticipate changes coming. Look, I'm getting married in a few weeks, which is wild to think about. And hey, looking to have a Chewy of my own. Not Chewy exactly, but our name for future kiddo, by the way, is Osiris.
Okay.
Osiris,
God of death. Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Bringer of destruction to all. Yeah, Osiris. Yeah. Osiris Goldsmith. Pleasure to meet you.
Anyway. Is it going to stick? You think it will stick?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. You don't have the Sean Ramirez mojo of naming things.
It came about as a result of what would you name your kid if you really hated your kid?
Okay.
That name came about as part of that, I guess. We'd just seen an exhibit at the St. Louis Art Museum that was Egyptian themed. Osiris had come up. Anyway, that's where that came from. I don't think future kiddo will be actually named Osiris Goldsmith. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess that's the state of the Duchy, huh?
That's just the state of the Duchy.
Just kind of Duchying on.
It's there. We're here.
Yeah. We're here. We're here.
Every other week or so.
The Dukes of Dice. You guys are still doing that? Yep. Yep, sure enough. Anyway. Well, hey, we got the best of the rest here, Sean, at the tail end of the episode, which want to talk through the rest of the top 6?
Let's do it.
All right. First up, Brett Mowers with 6 Duchies of Separation. I think that would have been my runner-up name, Sean.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, pretty solid name. Good job, Brett.
Basically, the idea that it's the 6th anniversary, it's that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, and the fact that a bunch of guild members and listeners are all kind of interconnected through us, through meeting other listeners of the shows at cons, and it was a cool explanation. I liked it.
Next one is from Nick Hayes, who suggested, Duke, you think I'm hexy? Referencing hex as in 6, and singing because I always sing.
And then BJ from Board Game Gumbo suggested 6 Flags over New Mexico and Missouri. Of course, the 6 is featured in there. What's that a reference to?
It's referencing 6 being the 6th episode, and then 6 Flags being, flying the Duchy flag over New Mexico and Missouri.
I gotcha. Okay, cool.
There you go. Don Gilstrap came with Forging Sweet Memories, which is combining iron, which is a traditional 6th anniversary gift, and candy, another traditional 6th anniversary gift. So that's where that came from. It was actually really clever. Nice job, Don.
And then finally, Josh Inger suggested 2 + 3 + 1 = 6. And he said the math checks out, and that was the only explanation. And we have no idea what this means. So please explain it for us on the guild.
We're not very smart.
No.
Or it's very vague. The math does check out. 2 + 3 + 1 is in fact 6.
Yeah. Sure does.
Oh,
so,
Sean. Oh my goodness.
Oh no. Did you get it?
Did you realize it at the same time?
No, I didn't get it. I still don't get it.
What episode number is this?
Oh, 231. Wow.
Yep.
Episode 231. 2 + 3 + 1.
Oh no. Well, thanks for listening to these couple of idiots. Oh my goodness.
What could this possibly mean?
We were so stumped on this. I was thinking, is the 3 referencing Sean's 3 other family members and my 1 other family member? Had no idea what 2 + 3 + 1 was referring to. Unreal.
Good job.
Joshian Gurr.
Wow.
I'm very disappointed in myself, not in you. You have humiliated both Dukes at the same time. I will say I figured it out first.
Yeah, no, you did. You absolutely did. You absolutely did. I suspect as I scroll down to the next part of our show notes where it has our episode number again, maybe, but I'm not.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That might have been where I noticed it.
Yeah. All right, Alex. Well, happy Duke-iversary.
Happy Duke-iversary.
This has been episode 231, which adds to 6. But we're calling it Boxcars. Thanks again to Steve O'Rourke, the name father, for that title suggestion. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on August 13th, 2020. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers, LLC. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders' fine titles at ArcaneWonders.com and find out all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!